I did something 2 weeks ago that I've never done before. I went hunting. This news raised eyebrows and even inspired guffaws of laughter among some friends and extended family members. I have endured ridicule, people. Now, there are a couple reasons for this. The guffaws and the ridicule came from the regular hunters in my family, the macho man crowd. For them, the issue is manhood. They didn't think this choir boy, goody two-shoes pastor would be man enough, would have either the will or the testosterone needed to carry a loaded gun around with the intention of dropping an animal that it might become supper. For them, being a hunter is like being a football player or a soldier or a professional arm wrestler. You have to be tough, and sensitive types like me just don't fit the mold, I guess. The raised eyebrows came from others who were surprised by the ethical implications of this decision of mine. Why would this pastor who talks a good game about nonviolence intentionally engage in what he's hoping will be a violent act? Isn't this hypocrisy? What would Jesus do, after all? Would Jesus go hunting? I have good friends and young clergy colleagues who are vegetarians. As we order our food at the restaurant, and I order the Angus, bacon, turkey, barbecue pork, deluxe, whatever, and they order their boca something, I feel the implicit judgment. You are more violent than me. And I take vegetarianism very seriously. And the conversation with my friends has changed my eating dramatically. If you are an omnivore, though, eating both meat and plants, then you live with this violence, whether you do the deed yourself or outsource your dirty work to someone else. I've come to grips with being an omnivore, believing that essentially we're hardwired to be omnivores. We've evolved as such. Our ancestors were hunter-gatherers, and I think it's okay for us to continue as we've been created to be. As I've thought more about food and our place in creation, though, what I've become most concerned about is some thoughtfulness in our eating. For me, knowing more about where my food comes from has deepened my appreciation for it, allowing me to see and know more that sustains me. I see my connection to the earth. I see my connection to the community in the faces of the people who provide food for me that I cannot provide for myself. For me, this is true, and I think it's true generally. More intentional eating leads us to be better stewards of God's creation. The Apostle Paul speaks of the creation groaning in labor pains. The event of the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ is the start of the spread of the realm of God on earth. But for Paul, the whole of creation is anxiously awaiting the fulfillment of the realm of God. The image of the groaning creation Paul gives us is a helpful image for our time. For us, as we're learning more and more about our ecological predicament, the full arrival of the realm of God will not just be about our reconciliation with one another as human beings. It will also include our reconciliation with the rest of creation. The realm of God, the world as God wants it to be, will be more present as we recognize that our actions impact not just one another, but our actions impact the earth on which we depend, the earth that is also good in God's sight. God's creation is presently groaning, waiting for a humanity that sees itself as a participant in creation and not separate from it. A couple articles in the sidebars of the newspaper recently caught my attention. One was the report of a study finding that Arctic sea ice is melting faster than anticipated, and it may be gone in 30 years instead of by the end of the century, as previously predicted. Now, the white surface of the Arctic sea ice reflects the sun light back up into the atmosphere. So as that disappears, then it's absorbed by the dark seawater, and it heats up the water faster, thus heating up our planet faster. Now, the other article reported that scientists at MIT have quietly updated their models that report climate change. They did this because the factors that contribute to global warming don't just add to the effects of one another, as scientists previously thought. They seem to multiply the effects of one another. So there's growing evidence that climate change is happening faster than we'd anticipated. If you're a climate change believer like I am, this is frightening news. It leaves me with a we're doomed sort of feeling, which is completely different than the feeling I had when I was hunting. And this made me think of a line I read from Garrison Keillor a while back, where he said something like, Environmentalists often remind me of the fundamentalists that I grew up with. For both, the earth is going to end at any minute. The world's going to end at any minute. Now, when I read that, I was offended by that statement initially, because it seemed to poo-poo these concerns that are very serious concerns for all of us. But I also recognized its truth. And as I read it now, I feel that statement moving me from fear to love. As much as we need to be speaking the truth about our ecological present predicament, crisis, fear is not going to lead us to our reconciliation with the rest of creation. What does have reconciling power is love for creation, appreciation of creation, awe and wonder in the face of creation. This love can convert us from being humans separate from creation to being humans seeing ourselves in the midst of it. This means we need to be telling one another our stories of growing in love for creation and of being drawn in. So I'm going to tell you my hunting story this morning. Now don't be alarmed. Everybody stays alive. So you have no need to fear if this is making you a little uncomfortable. Much of this story is very funny. Now thanks to my good friend Carl Batha, I participated in a Learn to Turkey Hunt event. Now, Carl is not here this morning. He may have sensed that this was coming. For a small fee after the service, I'll tell you the real stories of hunting with Carl. They're too good to just give away, okay? Now, the Learn to Turkey Hunt event is for people who've never hunted before, and you're assigned a mentor, and so Carl was my mentor, and you're given all the equipment you need, including a gun. And this is designed so that you can learn, and you also don't have to spend a lot of money to get started. Now, what paints a funny picture is that the Learn to Hunt program is open to old fogies like me, but it's geared towards youth. So as I went to my required class, I opened the door to this classroom to see a room full of 11 and 12-year-old boys, decked out in camouflage, itching to bear arms. And it tested my courage a little bit. I don't have any camo. I was much taller than all of them. I didn't blend in very well, you know? And then we went to do some shooting. And I find out that all of these 11 to 12-year-old boys are sharpshooters. They don't miss anything. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to shoot. You don't shoot a Bible, you thump it, right? I'm not prepared. But luckily, I hit the target a few times and left with my pride mostly intact. And what I learned about wild turkeys through this process was fascinating. Turkeys have incredible eyesight. So their eyesight is like looking through a 10-power binoculars. And their range of vision is 270, possibly 360 degrees. They see virtually everything. They can see you blink from at least 50 yards, if not 100 yards away, which is remarkable. So for the hunter, that means you have to be completely camouflaged from head to toe, and you have to be very, very still. Turkeys are mating in the spring. It's the season of the birds and the bees. Love's in the air for them too. And the toms, the guys, will display themselves strutting around, showing how beautiful they are to the hens. And then the hens choose a mate. And as a hunter, you then try to mimic the sounds of the hens. And you have a little squeaky toy, and you make your little calls so that you're hoping that the tom will come into you, come towards you.